Direct volation. A lesson from the book Personal Magnetism, Psychic Influence, etc. by William Walker Atkinson. The exercise of volation differs very materially, in degree, among different men. It may be stated broadly that a man exerts an influence over other men in an exact ratio to his measure of volation. The leader of men has developed this power to a comparatively high degree, although perhaps unconsciously and without a knowledge of the workings of the mighty force which is operating in his behalf. Many such men frankly admit that they are unable to explain or account for their power over men. They know that they have some sort of power, but are ignorant of its nature or laws. Napoleon is a striking example of the man of highly developed volation. His will was imposed upon millions of men who obeyed his commands, and he accomplished results little short of miraculous. From remarks dropped by him, it seems probable that he had, at least, a faint idea of the force at his command, and he acted in accordance therewith for a while. He afterwards attempted to misuse his power, lost sight of the source of his strength, neglected its laws, and fell. You will notice that all successful men instinctively feel the I strongly. They have faith in themselves and frequently feel that they have a special providence overlooking their affairs. They, like Napoleon, feel that they have a star of destiny. This is an instinctive recognition of the I am. They have but a glimpse of the truth and have made the most of it, their strong desire for power, fame, or riches pushing them on and causing them to instinctively avail themselves of the powerful aid of the ego. There are many who recognize the power of the I am, some of whom understand its laws, and yet these men do not assert themselves in the struggle for material reward. They have the power within them, but desire is not there. They are content with the lesser material rewards and are not willing to pay the price of what is known as success or the mastery of men. Many men who have mastered the occult powers scorn wealth, position, and fame, and exert no desire for them, feeling that these things are unworthy of their powers, and preferring to use the forces at their command for what they consider higher aims. They say with the prophet, "Vanity, vanity, all is vanity, and with Puck, what fools these mortals be." The law of compensation seems to even all things, and wealth, power, and position do not always bring happiness. The old sayings, "Uneasy the head that wears the crown," and "There is no rose without its thorn," are literally true. However, I do not purpose preaching a sermon on life, nor do I wish to point a moral. Every individual must choose for himself, and no man can decide for another. I say, however, that whatever you do it right. There is only one way to do things, and that is to do them. You must put your hand to the plow and look not backward. Select your goal and then move straight toward it, sweeping from your path all obstacles. To accomplish your aim, you must have desire strongly present and must recognize your real self, the I am, in order to exert what is generally known as willpower in the furtherance of your plans. In the preceding lesson, I have defined volation as the conscious effort of the will, producing thought vibrations and impelling them toward a given object. The vibratory force may be exerted in the ordinary way at short range upon the occasion of a personal interview. It also may be exerted in a much less understood way, by means of long-range vibrations, sometimes called telepathy. The first form is quite common, and we all have seen exhibitions of it. The second form is somewhat rare, and those who understand it best have but little to say about it. It is practiced quietly, however, by many more persons than we usually dream of in that connection. We see mild examples of it in what is known as telepathy or thought transference, mind reading, etc., but these exhibitions are usually given by those who understand the subject very imperfectly. I know several persons who have developed this power to a wonderful degree, and in no case will they consent to an exhibition of their powers to any but a few chosen friends, with whom they are in perfect sympathy and who happen to be likewise familiar with the subject. These people know the real nature of the power of which they are making use, and will not degrade it by making it the subject of an ordinary show. They are content with their knowledge, and seek to convince no one else. They are not looking for converts, and in fact, discourage any attempt to make public their occult knowledge, believing that the time is not yet ripe for such publicity, and that its promulgation at this time would result in its misuse. The prime, requisite for the acquirement of the art of volation is the recognition of the power of the real self, the I am. The more complete the recognition, the greater the power. I cannot give you specific directions for acquiring this faculty of recognition. You must feel it rather than reason it out. You will not be in doubt as to whether you are on the right track. You will realize it at once. As near as I can express it to you, is to say that you will feel that your body is as a suit of clothes, which, whilst covering you temporarily, is not you. That you are separate and apart from your body and superior to it, although for the time being connected with it. You will realize that even your mind is not you, but that it is merely the instrument through which you manifest yourself, and which, being imperfect, prevents the complete expression of your real self. In short, when you say or think, I am, you are conscious of the existence of your real self and feel the growth of a new sense of power within you. This recognition of the self may be but faint, but encourage it and it will grow, and whilst growing will manifest itself to your mind by impressing upon the latter the knowledge of the proper plan for further development. It is an example of, to him who hath shall be given, and to him who hath not shall be taken away even that which he hath. The mere calling of the attention to the fact may awaken the recognition in some, whilst others will find it necessary to reflect upon the idea and awaken to a recognition of the truth more slowly. Some will not feel the truth. To such I say, the time is not yet ripe for your recognition of this great truth, but the seed is planted and the plant will appear in time. This may seem like the veriest nonsense to you now, but the time will come when you will admit its literal correctness. To those who feel the first indications of the awakening of the real self, I say, carry the thought with you and it will unfold like the lotus, naturally and gradually. The truth once recognized cannot be lost, and there is no staying still in nature. To those who recognize the truth, I would like to say more, but this is not the place. The practice of concentration, as explained in a subsequent lesson, will enable anyone to develop this idea of the real self. The thought, I am, held in the silence, whilst you are concentrating, will grow stronger and stronger. To exercise the power of volation in influencing others, in a personal interview, you have merely to make a strong mental demand of the other person, accompanied with a consciousness of your right to do so, in the belief that your command will be obeyed. You must fully expect that your command will be obeyed. In all mental processes, the fullest expectation is a powerful factor in producing the effect. If you have only a faint, half-hearted expectation, you will have only halfway results. You will realize the reason for this after you have completed this course, the matter being explained in subsequent lessons. Now, do not understand that you will be able to approach anyone and, by simply willing and expecting the results, make that person do just what you will. You could do all of this if the person had no power of mental resistance, no volic force of his own to counteract yours. Some persons, unfortunately for themselves, have but little volic force and are but puppets in the hands of those who know the secret of personal influence. Others have a little more of the force, and so on, until the high stages are reached. I do say, however, that you will obtain some degree of success from this plan with every person with whom you come in contact, the degree of success depending entirely upon the degree of volic force of the other person, as compared with your own. You will understand this better after a few trials. Do not hesitate about commencing to practice this form of mental influence at once. You will improve by practice and will grasp the theory better from having put it into practice. Remember the boy not being able to swim until he believed he could and tried. You should of course use volation in connection with the power of suggestion, as explained in preceding lessons. You will be able to concentrate your powers of command by observing the exercises given in the lesson on concentration. In other lessons, I will explain why these occult powers should not be used for any evil purposes or in working harm to anyone, but I think it well, at this point, to caution students against any misuse of this power. Such practices, besides being wrong morally, will result to the disadvantage of the practitioner, and if persisted in will wreck his prospects in the end. He may be successful temporarily, but the result in the end will be disastrous. There are good occult reasons for this, and I hope that my warnings will be heeded by anyone reading this course. There is no harm in using this knowledge and information toward promoting your legitimate business interests and your welfare, providing always that no harm is inflicted on the person influenced. You may influence a man to deal with you, and if you treat him fairly, you are making no misuse of your powers. But on the other hand, if you should influence a man for the purpose of swindling or cheating him or doing him other harm, you commit a great wrong for which you will someday suffer in proportion to the wrong perpetrated. I am not speaking of punishment in a future life, but right here in this world. As ye sow, so shall ye reap, holds good in this case. There is very little likelihood of your misusing your powers of volation, for when you attain them fully, you will instinctively recoil from the idea of working evil by means of your newfound strength. There are, however, a few men in the world who, like Satan, use their mighty power for evil, but, like Satan, these men are doomed to extreme misery and unhappiness. They are like fallen gods. The best exercise for the development of volation is, of course, concentration, but it may be interesting to the student to be able to try his hand on a few simple tests so as to gain confidence in himself. I append a few exercises for this purpose. Many others will readily occur to the student. Try only easy tests at first, and then gradually work up to more difficult feats. Practice makes perfect. Let me say here that when you will anything, do not get the notion that you must frown or clench your fists or anything of that sort. The force is attained by a calm, undisturbed attitude, the willing being done in the form of a calm, earnest demand, and the thought that what you expect will occur. The earnest expectation is the secret. You will soon get the knack of it. Do not be discouraged, but keep at it until you get things working smoothly. In our next lesson, we will take up the subject of long-range volation, or, more properly, telepathic volation. Now to some exercises. Exercise 1. Whilst walking down the street, fix your attention upon someone walking just ahead of you. A distance of at least 6 to 10 feet should separate you, and a greater distance is no obstacle. Fasten a firm, steady, earnest gaze upon your subject, focusing the gaze upon the back of his neck, just at the base of the brain. Whilst gazing firmly at this point, will that the subject shall turn his head and look around in your direction. A little practice is required to perfect yourself in this exercise, but after you once acquire the knack of it, you will be surprised at the percentage of people whom you can affect in this way. Women seem to be more highly susceptible to this mental influence than men. Exercise 2. Fix your gaze upon someone sitting ahead of you in church, theater, concert, etc., focusing your gaze upon the same point as in the previous exercise, and will that the person shall look around. You will notice that the subject will fidget around in his seat, appear more or less uncomfortable, and finally half turn in his seat and direct a quick glance in your direction. This experiment will prove more successful with persons whom you know than with strangers. The better you know the person, the quicker the influence will manifest itself. The two exercises just given can be indefinitely multiplied by the ingenuity of the student. The principle is the same in all cases: the concentrated gaze and strong, earnest, expectant willing, or demanding the result, being the prime factors in producing the phenomenon. You, of course, realize that the concentrated willpower can be developed by the practice of the exercises given in the lesson on concentration. If you find difficulty in producing the above results, you will know that your powers of concentration are not sufficiently developed, and you will accordingly perfect yourself in this respect. Exercise 3. Select some person who may be seated on the opposite side of a streetcar from you, but several seats to the right or left of the point directly opposite you. You may look straight ahead, so as to appear as if you were not looking at the other party, but you will be conscious of his presence, and will see him out of the corner of your eye. Direct a strong mental demand toward him, willing and expecting that he will look in your direction. You will find that he will soon fidget around in his seat, perhaps look out of the window, or look anywhere but in your direction, and then, in a few minutes, will turn his head and glance directly at you. If the person be a lady, you may vary the experiment by willing her to look in your direction and then, a few moments later, to suddenly turn her head to the opposite side, as if she had become interested in something outside. This exercise will prove a most interesting one, and you will derive much amusement from it. It is the same old principle, the distance making no difference. You can influence a person as easily a mile away as you can one sitting beside you. The distance seems to make little difference in the power of mental communication. The experiments must, of course, be carried on with earnestness and expectancy. The more earnest the demand, and the stronger the expectancy, the better the results obtained. You may expect to obtain but indifferent results at first, but do not be discouraged, as practice will make you perfect, and you will be surprised at your success in a short time. I have known persons who have developed this power to such an extent that they could almost control the actions of certain persons whom they had under observation. I know one person who has the power so well under control that he can, when conversing with a person in the room, will that the person shall perform certain actions without speaking a word to him. I know another person who can, by sheer power of demand, make a person call him up on the telephone, when the party had not the slightest idea of doing so before the demand was made. You may be tempted to misuse this power, but if you do, I warn you that you will suffer for it in the end. Use the power rightly, and all will be well with you. But misuse it, and disaster will surely follow. I speak from knowledge of the subject. Use the power to gain honest success and help yourself and others, but never to work evil. In our next lesson, we will take up the subject of telepathy. End of lesson.